The galactic broadcast spanned across 1,000 star systems. It was a show where the royal families from different alien empires spoke about politics, science, and sometimes Earth. The Zilari Empire, known for its power and pride, had 4 royal daughters. Each of them stood on the shining balcony of their crystal palace, dressed in robes that shimmered under the twin suns. The oldest, Princess Valara, spoke first. "Earth is a weak planet," she said with a smirk. "Why does the council even allow them a seat at the table?" The crowd of alien elites laughed. Princess Syra, the second daughter, leaned forward with a playful smile. "I once saw a human try to fix a broken drone with tape. How sad." Even the youngest, Princess Elia, known for her cold attitude, added, "If I ever had to live on Earth, I would rather sleep in space." Their mocking spread fast across the stars. On Earth, few people noticed. Most humans were too busy with their daily lives to care about what 4 spoiled alien princesses thought. But far away, in a quiet human city, one man's life was about to change forever. Noah worked in a repair station on the edge of New Boston. He wore simple clothes, kept his head down, and fixed what others broke. He wasn't rich, he wasn't famous, but he had a good heart. He lived alone in a small apartment and often took extra shifts. His co-workers liked him because he was calm, helpful, and never complained. But no one really knew him. That's how Noah liked it. Until one morning, when everything turned upside down. The sky above New Boston shimmered with strange lights. Massive ship, larger than any human-made vessel, descended without warning. It hovered over the city's center. People screamed, soldiers rushed out. The world held its breath. Then a single transport craft broke off from the mothership and flew straight toward Noah's repair station. Noah stepped outside just in time to see the sleek alien ship land in front of him. Its door opened with a hiss. Out came 2 armored Zilari guards. They looked at Noah, scanned him with a golden device, and bowed. "Noah of Earth," one said, "you are summoned to the High Court of the Zilari Empire." Noah blinked. "What?" "You must come. With us, the king is dead, and his final will concerns you." Within hours, Noah was taken across the stars. He sat in a chamber filled with strange energy, his heart racing as the ship jumped through space. The guards didn't answer his questions. They only said, "All will be explained when we arrive." When the ship reached the Zilari homeworld, Noah looked out the window and gasped. The planet was covered in shining cities, floating towers, and glowing waterfalls. It was like something from a dream. He was taken into a giant courtroom, one larger than any building he'd ever seen. Cameras floated around, broadcasting the scene live to billions. High nobles, alien leaders, and the 4 princesses were already there. The princesses looked at him in shock. "A human?" Valara whispered. The royal speaker stepped forward. "Today we read the final will of King Zalvan, ruler of the Zilari Empire." The hall fell silent. A hologram of the late king appeared in the air. His voice was calm, wise, and full of emotion. "To my daughters I have given everything, power, knowledge, and protection. But to teach humility and respect, I now give you something more." The princesses leaned in, eyes wide. "I hereby name Noah of Earth as the holder of your royal bond. Each of you will serve beside him, not as slaves but as life companions. He shall not be beneath you, but your equal. My decision is final." The courtroom exploded in shock. Nobles shouted. Reporters gasped. The princesses froze in disbelief. "What?" Princess Syra yelled. "He's a human, this is a joke." Valara stepped forward. "He's not worthy, he's nothing." But Noah didn't say a word. He stood still, heart pounding, as the truth settled in. He had just inherited the 4 most powerful and proud princesses in the galaxy. The courtroom remained filled with noise. Shouts, gasps, and questions echoed from every corner of the hall. Noah stood quietly at the center, still trying to understand what had just happened. The king of the mighty Zilari Empire had given his daughters, the 4 royal princesses, to a human. Not as property, but as life-bonded companions. The word was strange to Noah. He didn't even know what that truly meant yet. All he knew was that the galaxy now looked at him like he didn't belong. Valara, the eldest princess, stepped forward in anger. Her long robe dragged behind her like waves of silver fire. "There must be a mistake," she said to the royal speaker. "My father would never choose this man." The speaker replied calmly, "The will was verified by our highest truth-seers. There is no mistake. The king's choice was final." Princess Syra folded her arms. "We are princesses, warriors, diplomats, scholars. Why would he give us to a planet full of farmers and metal fixers?" Noah looked down at his hands. They were still stained with oil from his last repair job back on Earth. Elia, the quietest sister, said nothing. She just stared at Noah with cold, curious eyes. Only the third sister, Princess Ayla, looked slightly less angry. She stepped back and watched the others argue. Something about her seemed more thoughtful. "Noah of Earth." The speaker turned to him. "Do you accept the bond?" Noah blinked. I don't know what it means." "You will be honored and protected. The princesses are bound by royal law to remain by your side, to learn from you, and to live with you. But you must accept the role." Noah took a deep breath. He never wanted fame or power, he only wanted a quiet life. But he also knew this wasn't something he could run from. "I accept," he said. More gasps, more whispers. The choice was done. That evening, Noah was taken to a royal chamber inside the palace. It was larger than his entire apartment building, back on Earth. The walls sparkled with floating lights. The windows showed a sky full of moons and stars. But Noah didn't feel at peace. He felt trapped. He walked over to a table and found a cup filled with glowing water. He tried a sip. It tasted like nothing he'd ever had before. Then the door opened. Valara stepped in, alone. "You may have accepted this bond," she said sharply, "but that doesn't mean we will respect you." Noah stayed silent. "My sisters and I will never follow a human. We are not here to serve. We are here because our father trapped us in a final joke." Noah looked at her calmly. "I didn't ask for this." "Then leave," she said. "Break the bond. Walk away." He shook his head. "Your father must have had a reason. I want to understand it before I make any choice." Valara narrowed her eyes. "Then be ready, Earthman. You'll learn that princesses do not bend easily." She turned and left. The next day, the palace began its new routine. Noah was given a small team of Zilari advisors. They tried to teach him basic customs and rules, but he asked only one thing. "Let me see the princesses. Let me talk to them one by one." His request was approved. First he met Syra in the training arena. She wore armor and held a sharp-looking staff. "You came to challenge me?" She smirked. "You must be brave. Or foolish." "I came to..." "Listen," Noah said. Syra twirled her staff. "Humans talk too much. Let's see what your body says." She charged at him. Noah ducked. She struck again, fast and hard. But Noah had learned self-defense back on Earth, not to win, just to survive. He blocked with his arm and gently pushed her aside. She stopped. "You didn't strike back," she said. "I'm not here to hurt you," Noah replied. "I'm here to understand why a king trusted a human." Syra looked at him strangely. "Maybe you're not as weak as you look." Later he found Ayla in the gardens. She was feeding small glowing birds. "You're not like I expected," she said softly. "What did you expect?" Noah asked. "A loud, proud fool. But you're quiet, careful. My father admired that." "You speak about him kindly," Noah noticed. "He was wise, even if I didn't always agree. Maybe he saw something in you." That night, Noah returned to his room. He was exhausted. Not from action, but from how heavy the silence felt. Every step in the palace echoed like it. Didn't want him there. Still, he didn't give up. He would find out the truth behind the will, because somewhere deep down, something told him he wasn't brought here by mistake. Noah awoke the next morning to a new challenge. The grand hall where the royal family often gathered was now a place of tension. The princesses, though still unwilling to accept their fate, no longer mocked Noah as they had before. However, the cold silence between them told him everything. This was far from over. Noah walked to the grand hall where Princess Valara and the others waited. The walls shimmered with ancient Solari symbols, and tall windows let in the soft glow of the twin suns. The princesses stood together, their faces serious. They didn't speak when Noah entered. They only watched him, waiting for him to say something. "I'm not your enemy," Noah said carefully, looking at each princess. "I didn't ask for any of this." Valara crossed her arms. "You may not have asked, but now you are part of our world, whether you like it or not," Noah sighed. "I understand, but I'm not here to rule you. I don't even know how to begin." There was a long pause before Sira spoke. "Then why did you accept the king's will? You could have refused. You could have told them you didn't want this." "I couldn't," Noah said, shaking his head. "I couldn't refuse without knowing why. Your father, he must have had a reason for doing this." "The king was a fool," Valara snapped. "A mistake. He didn't know what he was doing." "I don't believe that," Noah replied. "There's something more to it." Elia, the youngest princess who had been silent for most of the time, stepped forward. She looked at Noah with a strange expression in her eyes. "I think you're right. The king did have a reason, but it wasn't for you, Noah." "What do you mean?" Noah asked, his curiosity growing. Elia's eyes darted to the other princesses before she continued. "It was for us. We needed to learn humility, and he believed you could teach us that." The others stared at her, surprised by her honesty. Noah didn't know how to respond. He felt as if something heavy had just been placed on his shoulders. That afternoon, after their meeting, the princesses gathered again. But this time they had a plan. Valara was the first to speak. "We cannot let this happen. We cannot live under the control of a human. We were born to lead, not serve." Ayla nodded. "I agree. The king's will is unjust. The idea of spending my life beside a human, it's unbearable." Syra clenched her fists. "We'll need to take action. If the king's will cannot be overturned, we will find another way to change this." Noah overheard their conversation from the other side of the grand hall. His heart sank as he realized what was about to unfold. The princesses were planning to defy their father's final command, and they were preparing to fight against him. That night, Noah walked through the grand palace gardens. His mind was heavy, with everything he had learned. He didn't want to fight against the princesses, but he knew they wouldn't accept the will easily. The idea of being their equal didn't sit well with them. But Noah believed there was a better way. He believed they could work together if they just gave it a chance. The next day, Syra made her move. She confronted Noah in the training arena, where he had first met her. This time, she wasn't holding a staff. She stood in front of him, her eyes filled with determination. "I gave you a chance to explain yourself," she said, her voice cold. "But now it's clear, you're not fit to lead us." Noah looked at her, his mind racing. "I'm not here to lead you. I never asked for that. I just want to understand why this is happening." "You'll understand soon enough," Syra replied, stepping closer to him. "You're part of this empire now. And if you think you can walk away from that, you're wrong." Suddenly, the sound of heavy footsteps filled the air. Valara and Ayla entered the arena, both wearing matching expressions of anger and defiance. "This is where it ends," Valara declared. "You are not our king, Noah. You will never be." Noah stood still. His heart raced as he realized the princesses were planning to make their stand, but they weren't just rebelling against him. They were rebelling against everything that their father had left behind. In the days that followed, the palace seemed to hold its breath. Noah had been caught in the middle of a power struggle that had nothing to do with him and everything to do with the Zalari princess's pride. Noah decided to take action. He had to find a way to show them that he wasn't their enemy. But how? He gathered the princesses once more. This time, they did not argue. They simply listened. "I'm not here to control you," Noah began. "I want to work with you. I believe we can learn from each other, but I need your help. We all need to decide how we move forward." The silence that followed was heavy. Noah didn't know if they would accept his offer, but he had to try. Finally, Ayla spoke, her voice softer than before. Maybe there's a way." Valara narrowed her eyes but said nothing. Syra crossed her arms, still unsure. Noah looked at them all, hoping his words had made some difference. The days after the princess's rebellion were tense. Valara, Sira, and Ayla remained distant from Noah, though their expressions had softened ever so slightly. Elia, the youngest, continued to observe him with a mix of curiosity and quiet contemplation. The once oppressive silence now had an undercurrent of something else. Hope. Hope that perhaps they could all find a way to make this work. Noah, however, couldn't shake the feeling that he was caught in the middle of a storm. Despite his best efforts to reason with the princesses, they still struggled to accept their new lives. The grand palace, which once felt like a strange dream, now felt like a prison. But Noah knew he couldn't give up. The king's will had left him a responsibility, one that he could no longer ignore. One morning, Noah was summoned to the royal library, a place full of ancient knowledge and forgotten secrets. The room was vast, filled with towering shelves of books, scrolls, and holographic records. It smelled like dust and history. A holographic map of the galaxy hovered in the center of the room, its lights flickering as the information updated itself. "Do you really think this can work?" A voice interrupted Noah's thoughts. He turned to see Elia standing in the doorway, her arms folded. Her usual cold expression had softened, though she still held herself with quiet strength. Noah smiled gently. "I don't know, but I have to try. We have to find a way to live together, otherwise this will never end." Elia stepped into the room, her eyes scanning the shelves of ancient books. "My father left you with a great burden, Noah." "I didn't ask for it," Noah replied, his voice steady. "But it's mine now, and I believe there's a reason. I believe he wanted to teach us something. About us, about Earth, about unity." Elia walked toward a shelf at the back of the room, her fingers brushing over old tomes. "There's something you don't know," she said, pulling down a dusty scroll. "Something my father never told anyone." Noah raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean?" Elia unrolled the scroll, revealing ancient writing in the Zelari language. She pointed to a section written in a flowing script, her finger tracing the words slowly. "This is an old Zelari prophecy. It says that one day a human would come to lead our empire, not by force, but by understanding. The king believed you were the one, but only if you could prove yourself worthy." Noah frowned. "What does that mean? How could I possibly prove myself worthy?" "I don't know," Elia admitted, "but it's the only clue we have, and it may be the key to unlocking what my father truly wanted." Noah felt a rush of both excitement and fear. This was the first time he had heard of the prophecy. Could it be true? Was there more to his arrival than just a mistake? Or was it the king's secret plan all along? Later that day, Noah met with the princesses again. This time they sat in a smaller room surrounded by windows that overlooked the palace gardens. The sun shone brightly outside, but inside there was still tension. Valara crossed her arms. "So what now? Do you expect us to bow to you? Do you think we'll just forget who we are?" Noah took a deep breath. "I don't want you to bow. I want us to learn from each other. I know you don't like this situation, I understand, but maybe there's more to it than we realize. Maybe this was meant to be." Ayla scoffed. "Meant to be? You still don't understand, do you? We are the daughters of the greatest empire in the galaxy. We have our own destinies." "No," Noah replied, shaking his head. "You don't understand. Your father didn't leave you here by accident. He believed in something greater. He believed that you could be more than just rulers. He believed you could learn from Earth. He believed in unity, and so do I. For a moment there was silence. The princesses exchanged looks, unsure of how to respond. It was clear that Noah's words had made them think. I don't know if I believe in that prophecy, Noah continued, but if there's even a chance that it's true, I have to try, and I believe that you all do too. That evening after the meeting, Noah sat in his room alone. His mind raced with questions. Could a human really lead an empire of aliens? Could he truly help the princesses see the importance of Earth's way of life? It all seemed impossible. But somewhere deep inside he felt a pull, a sense of purpose that he hadn't felt before. The next day, the Zalari court was to hold a grand assembly. It was a time for the royal family to discuss matters of the empire. Noah had been invited to attend. It would be his first time sitting among the galaxy's elite, surrounded by people who had mocked Earth only days before. As Noah prepared to enter the grand hall, he paused. The weight of his responsibility was clear now. He wasn't just an outsider anymore. He was part of something much bigger, something that could change the course of history. But could he live up to the prophecy? Could he earn the trust of the princesses and the galaxy? Noah took a deep breath and walked into the hall. The princesses were already there, standing at their father's throne. They looked at him, their eyes filled with doubt, but also a hint of curiosity. Valara spoke first, her voice cold but thoughtful. You're still here, Noah. What is it that you want from us? Noah stood tall. I want to understand your world. I want to show you that we can build something better together. For the first time, the princesses didn't turn away. They didn't scoff or dismiss him. They simply watched, waiting to see what he would do next. The grand assembly hall was filled with murmurs as Noah entered. The Zalari nobles who had once mocked Earth and its people now stared at him with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. His presence, once a joke, was now something to be reckoned with. But Noah wasn't here for recognition or fame. He was here for something greater, something that could unite two worlds. The princesses stood at the royal table, their expressions hard to read. Valara's eyes were sharp as ever, while Sira seemed lost in thought. Elia was silent, as usual, and Ayla kept her distance. They didn't speak to Noah, but they didn't look away either. It was as if they were waiting for him to prove that his presence here wasn't a mistake. The assembly began with the usual pomp and ceremony. The nobles spoke of trade, security, and the expansion of the Zalari Empire. It all seemed distant to Noah, who couldn't help but notice the gap between what these leaders valued and the way they viewed Earth. But then, as the meeting drew to a close, something unexpected happened. A group of Zalari soldiers stormed into the hall. Their armor gleamed and their weapons were drawn. The leader of the soldiers, a tall, imposing figure, stepped forward. He was dressed in a dark uniform, his face hidden behind a mask. Your Highnesses, the soldier said, addressing the princesses, we have come to deliver a message. The will of King Zalvan has caused unrest in the Empire. It is time to end this farce. Valara stood up, her voice cold and commanding. What do you mean, end this farce? The soldier's eyes shifted to Noah. You, human, have no place in the Zalari Empire. You are a distraction, a mistake that must be corrected. Noah's heart skipped a beat. He could sense that something was wrong. The soldier's words were not just a threat. They were a declaration of war. Before he could react, the soldiers rushed forward. One of them drew a blade and aimed it at him. Noah stepped back instinctively, but he knew he couldn't escape. He had to act. The princesses sprang into action. Sira, with her fierce strength, leaped toward the soldier who had threatened Noah. She knocked his blade aside with a swift movement and disarmed him. Stay away from him, she shouted. Ayla moved quickly to Noah's side, pulling him away from the fray. We need to leave now. But Valara was not one to back down. She strode to the center of the hall, her voice echoing through the space. You think you can overthrow our father's will? You think you can erase his final decision? You are wrong. The soldiers hesitated, clearly unsure how to proceed against the force of the royal family. It was clear that the princesses, despite their pride and reluctance, were still deeply loyal to their late father's wishes. And now, they were willing to defend those wishes, even if it meant fighting their own people. The soldier leader, clearly angered by the defiance, turned to his men. "Do not hesitate, take them down." With a flash of metal and a roar of anger, the battle erupted in the grand hall. Noah, caught between the princesses and the soldiers, moved to defend himself. He didn't have the training of a soldier, but he had the determination of a man who had nothing left to lose. Syra fought fiercely, her movements sharp and precise. She held off the soldiers with ease, her strength surprising Noah. Ayla, though, calm, moved with fluid grace, her every strike landing with deadly precision. Even Elia, usually the quiet one, joined the fray, her anger giving her a power Noah hadn't seen before. As the battle raged on, Noah found himself face to face with the soldier leader. The man was a skilled fighter, and Noah knew he couldn't win in a physical fight. But he had something the soldier didn't, a sense of purpose. "No!" Noah shouted, holding up his hands to stop the soldier's next strike. "This isn't the way." The soldier hesitated for a moment, his mask hiding any sign of emotion. But Noah didn't back down. He knew that if this continued, it would only tear the empire apart, just as the princesses feared. They needed to see that fighting wouldn't solve anything. "This war, this battle, it's all pointless," Noah continued, his voice steady. "Your king's will was not meant to divide us. It was meant to bring us together." The soldier's blade stopped just inches from Noah's face. For a long moment, everything was still. The princesses, still locked in combat with the remaining soldiers, paused as well, waiting for the soldier leader to make his next move. Finally, the soldier lowered his blade, his eyes narrowing. "You are not like the others." Noah nodded. "I'm not here to rule, I'm here to help." Before the soldier could respond, Valara's voice rang out across the room. "Enough!" she commanded. "All of you stop! We will not let the will of my father be destroyed by blind hatred." The soldiers stood still, unsure of what to do. The princesses had made their point. This wasn't just about fighting for power. It was about something greater, something they all needed to understand. Valara turned to Noah. "You may have won this battle, but the war is far from over. The Empire won't simply accept a human as its leader. You'll need more than words to change their hearts." Noah looked at her, then at the other princesses. "I know, but we can't win this by fighting. We need to show them that unity is stronger than division." For the first time, the princesses seemed to consider his words. The soldiers, their leader now defeated, stepped back. The room was quiet, but the air was thick with tension. The grand hall was eerily silent after the battle had ended. The soldiers, once fierce and confident, now stood down, their weapons lowered. The princesses, though tired from the fight, remained poised, their expressions a mix of defiance and reluctant respect. Noah stood among them, still uncertain of what had just happened. The conflict had been stopped, but the true test was only beginning. Valara, her armor scratched and dirtied from the fight, stepped forward. Her gaze met Noah's, and for the first time there was no anger in her eyes. Instead, there was a flicker of understanding. "You didn't fight back," she said, her voice quieter now, yet firm. "You didn't fight us. You fought for something else, but that doesn't mean we're ready to follow you." Noah took a deep breath. "I don't want you to follow me," he said, his voice steady. "I want us to work together. We need to find a way to make this work for all of us. Not just for you, not just for me, but for the future of the Zilari Empire." Valara studied him for a moment, her face unreadable. "You still don't understand. We are not like humans. We were born to rule, to command. Our empire is built on strength and power, not cooperation." "I know that," Noah replied. "But power without unity leads to destruction, and I believe your father knew that. I believe he saw something in humanity that could bring peace, not just between us but across the galaxy." The words hung in the air, heavy with meaning. Valara didn't speak for a moment, as if weighing Noah's words. Then, to Noah's surprise, she nodded slightly. "Perhaps, but this will take time." It won't happen overnight. Noah smiled, relief washing over him. I'm willing to take that time. We all are. In the days that followed, the mood in the palace began to shift. The soldiers, who had once been a symbol of resistance, now worked alongside the princesses and Noah. Though there was still tension, a new respect was growing among them. The nobles of the Zalari Empire, who had once laughed at Earth's weakness, were starting to see things differently. Slowly but surely, Noah was making his way through the complex web of politics, power, and pride. One evening, after a long day of discussions, Noah sat in the royal gardens, staring up at the twin moons. He had come to appreciate the beauty of the palace, even though it felt so distant from his life back on Earth. The quiet sound of the wind through the trees was peaceful, a welcome break from the tension of the past few days. Elia, Noah said, turning to see the youngest princess approaching. How's everything going? Are the others adjusting? Elia sat down beside him, her usual quiet demeanor more open now. They're still not happy, but I think they're beginning to understand. Syra especially. She's always been the most stubborn, but I think even she's starting to see what you're trying to do. Noah chuckled. She doesn't make things easy, does she? No, Elia said with a small smile. But that's why we need her. She's strong, and when she believes in something, she's unstoppable. True, Noah agreed. I just hope they'll all see that we need to work together. The empire has been torn apart by pride for too long. It's time for something different. Elia nodded, her expression thoughtful. I think my father knew that. He didn't just leave us to you by accident. There's something special about this, something that none of us fully understand yet. For a long moment they sat in silence, each lost in their thoughts. The stars above seemed brighter tonight, and Noah felt a strange sense of hope. The road ahead was still uncertain, but for the first time since his arrival, he truly believed that change was possible. The next day, Noah was summoned to the royal chamber for a meeting with the Empire's council. The room was filled with the most powerful figures in the Zalari Empire, high-ranking nobles, military leaders, and advisors. They all stared at him as he entered, their faces a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Valara was at the head of the table, her posture straight and proud. She looked at Noah, then at the council. We've all gathered here today because the time has come to decide the future of our empire. The king is gone, and the will he left us has divided us all. But now we must move forward. Together. Noah stepped forward, feeling the weight of the moment. The room was silent, every eye on him. I know you all doubt me, he began. I'm a human. I don't have the power of your bloodlines, the strength of your armies, or the wisdom of your people. But I do have something that I believe is more powerful than all of that, the desire for unity. I believe that together we can make the Zalari Empire stronger than ever. The council members exchanged glances. Some looked unconvinced, others more intrigued. What do you propose, human? One of the nobles asked, his voice dripping with disdain. Noah looked at the princesses who were sitting at the table watching him closely. I propose that we form a council of leaders, the Zalari princesses alongside humans, alongside the galaxy's greatest minds, working together to guide the empire. We can share knowledge, ideas, and strength. Valara spoke next, her voice calm but firm. This is not an easy decision. We have been rulers for centuries. The idea of sharing power with someone who is not of our bloodline is difficult. I understand, Noah replied. But this isn't about sharing power. It's about sharing responsibility. We have a duty to the people of this empire, to the future of this galaxy. We must stop letting pride tear us apart. The Zalari Empire had been built on strength, power, and tradition, but now in the heart of its grand palace, change was taking root. Noah stood before the council, the same council that had once dismissed him as nothing more than a curiosity. Now they were looking at him as a potential leader, as the man who might unite their fractured empire. It had been weeks since the battle in the Grand Hall. The princesses had reluctantly begun to accept Noah's presence, and the nobles, although skeptical, had agreed to give his plan a chance. The council meetings were still tense, but each day brought new signs of progress. The princesses, despite their pride, had started to engage with Noah on a deeper level, though the road ahead remained challenging. Noah had spent countless hours discussing strategies with Valara, Syra, Ayla, and even Elia. The princesses had their doubts, but they were beginning to see that Noah wasn't the enemy. He was something different, someone who could bring about the change they needed even if they didn't fully understand it yet. Today was a turning point. Today, they would vote on the proposal Noah had put forward. A council of leaders, composed of the princesses Noah and the greatest minds of Earth and Zalari. A council that would work together to guide the Empire into a new era of unity. As Noah walked through the grand hall toward the council chamber, he couldn't help but reflect on how much had changed since his arrival. The Zalari princesses, once proud and dismissive, had begun to see him not as a threat, but as a partner. Even the nobles who had mocked Earth now listened to his ideas with an open mind. The chamber doors opened and Noah stepped inside. The council room was filled with tension. The nobles, dressed in their fine robes, sat at the long table. The princesses, still standing, were at the head of the table, their faces serious. The air was thick with anticipation. The moment of truth had arrived. Valara stood up first, her voice calm and commanding. "We have discussed this matter for weeks. The proposal has been put to the test, and now it is time to make a decision. We will vote on the Council of Leaders, as Noah of Earth has suggested." Noah took his seat at the table, his heart beating faster. This was it, the moment that would determine whether the Zalari Empire would evolve or whether it would remain, stuck in its old ways. He looked at the princesses, each of them deep in thought, and then at the nobles, who were still unsure of what to make of him. The room fell silent as Valara gestured for the vote to begin. One by one, the council members raised their hands, either in favor of the proposal or against it. Noah watched each gesture closely, hoping that the change he believed in would finally take root. The princesses were watching too, their eyes flicking back and forth between the council and Noah. When the votes were counted, the result was clear. The majority had voted in favor of the Council of Leaders. The room erupted into a mixture of applause and murmurs of disbelief. The Zalari Empire, for the first time in centuries, had agreed to share power, not with another Zalari ruler, but with a human. Noah stood up, his heart racing. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady. "This is the beginning of something new. Together we can create a future where both our worlds, Earth and Zalari, can thrive. But we cannot do it alone. We need each other. We need to learn from one another." The princesses nodded, their expressions no longer filled with disdain, but with something else, respect. They had seen Noah's determination, his belief in the future. They had seen him fight for unity, not for power. And for the first time, they were willing to try. Over the next few months, the Council of Leaders began to take shape. The princesses worked alongside the human representatives, sharing their knowledge and learning from the people of Earth. There were challenges, of course. Old prejudices didn't disappear overnight. There were still some who believed that Zalari tradition should never be questioned. But with each meeting, each discussion, the gap between Earth and Zalari seemed to narrow. Noah found himself spending more and more time with the princesses. He knew they weren't fully on board yet, but they were starting to listen. Valara, ever the strategist, had begun to see the value in cooperation rather than dominance. Syra, fierce and proud, had begun to understand that true strength came, not from power but from unity. Ayla, the quiet one, was the most hesitant, but Noah could see her slowly opening up, her trust in him growing with each passing day. And Elia, the youngest, had become his closest ally. Her sharp mind and open heart had made her an invaluable member of the council. Noah knew they weren't there yet. There were still many obstacles to overcome. But he also knew that they had made something incredible happen. They had shown that change was possible, even in an empire as old as Zalari. One evening, after a long day of meetings, Noah found himself in the palace gardens again, looking up at the stars. The air was cool, and the twin moons cast a soft glow over the world. For the first time since he arrived, he felt a sense of peace. Valara joined him, her footsteps soft on the grass. She stood beside him, looking out at the stars. "I never thought I would see the day when Earth and Xelari could work together," she said, her voice thoughtful. Noah smiled. "Neither did I, but here we are." Valara turned to him, her eyes steady. "I think you've shown us something, Noah, something we didn't know we needed. Unity. You didn't just bring us together. You brought us hope." Noah nodded, looking up at the stars. "It's not just me. It's all of us, together." And so, the Xelari Empire began its journey into a new era. The princesses, once rulers in their own right, now shared their power with the people of Earth, creating a council that worked for the good of both worlds. They were no longer enemies. They were partners. Noah had come to Xelari as a stranger, mocked and dismissed by the galaxy. But now he had become something more, a symbol of what could happen when two worlds came together, when humanity and the Xelari learned to work as one. The legacy of Earth was no longer one of weakness. It was one of strength, of unity, and of hope for a better future.